Okay, welcome everyone. I'd like to open the regular meeting of the Board of Directors for April 24th, 2025. And Deborah, if you could call the meeting to order, please.
Of course, roll call. Hamaji?
Here.
Hines?
Here.
Topper?
Here.
Hurt?
Here.
Bentley?
Here.
Lee?
Here.
Lair?
Here.
Walker?
Here.
Yang is excused, and Matheson.
Here.
Thank you. Are there any changes to the regular meeting minutes from March 27th? No. Okay, thank you, Dwight. Seeing none, we'll say they are approved. And I believe we have Cindy Silva from the City Council on Zoom, if she's available.
You do. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Great. Good morning, and thank you for allowing me to attend virtually. I have a few things to report. First, last week we celebrated the groundbreaking for the installation of synthetic turf soccer and baseball fields at Heather Farm Park. The project will take about 6 months to complete, so the new fields or refurbished fields should be ready for play by the end of the fall season. This project is funded by Measure O, the half-cent sales tax increase that was approved by local voters in 2022. And it is also being funded through private donations from the Walnut Creek Soccer Club. Now, a little closer to Rossmore, the project at Tice Valley Park is underway. This will be the addition of lights on the ball fields, which will give the ball fields extended use during all times of the year. And this project is also funded by Measure O, but it won't take 6 months. It will be ready to go probably by mid to late summer. I will say that the roadway repair work is in full swing across the city. So I warn everyone to take a little extra time or allow a little extra time in your schedule, whether you're going to John Muir Hospital or downtown or all the way across town into Concord. Allow a little extra time because there may be some lane closures going on. On the other hand, you could go on foot and take a downtown walking history tour in Walnut Creek. Now that the spring is here, the Walnut Creek Historical Society offers monthly downtown guided walking tours on the second Saturday of each month. So the next tour will be Saturday morning, May 10th. Registration is required, but these are free tours and they are docent led. And you can go to the Walnut Creek Historical Society website to find out when to register and how to do that. And this tour is really interesting because it's going to answer questions that I know you've all wondered, such as before the building was Model Bakery on Main Street, what was it? And in fact, it was the Model Bakery is in the oldest commercial building in Walnut Creek, and it was built in the 1880s, and it was the site of the Sherborne Mercantile Store for many, many decades. The city is busy at work preparing to adopt the city's next 2-year operating and capital budgets. The next budgets will extend from July 1, 2025 through June 30th, 2027. Like most cities and counties across the state, and actually probably across the nation, these are challenging times because of rising costs, slowing consumer spending, the flattening of our property tax base, rising pension contributions, increased costs for insurance, and increased costs for utilities. The City Council will have its first preview of the budget at its May 6th meeting and will adopt a balanced budget by June 30th, which is the statutory deadline. And finally, I will mention that Monday, May 26th is Memorial Day, and the city will commemorate Memorial Day at its annual event in Civic Park. The event will start at 11 a.m. and it will be concluded by about noon. And then we will lower the flags to commemorate Memorial Day in Veterans Park. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Cindy. Any questions for her? Ted?
Hi, Cindy. This is Ted Bentley.
Hi, Ted.
on the turf reduction that you're doing at Heather Farms, first of all, thank you for doing that. I'm sure there's going to be a large savings in labor and water. But I have two questions. One is, what do you think the savings will be to the city not having to have to mow and water and maintenance on that? And
Sorry, if it sounds like I'm in an airport, I am.
oh, okay. And the second part of that question is, what do you think the life expectancy of that is before you have to resurface the fields again?
Well, those are really good questions, and I'm going to answer them with my best guess, but not our Public Works Director, Mike Fixtures, would be able to answer better. But I will say the savings is not only in labor costs for mowing and blowing and just that daily and repair work and maintenance work, but also in the cost of water, but also the cost of herbicides and pesticides that are required to maintain natural turf ball fields. What I can do is plan next month to answer that question in better detail. Your other question was the life expectancy. When the school districts first started putting in all-weather ball fields, maybe 15 years ago, they said the life expectancy was about, I think, 10 years. And I think it's increased, but there is some maintenance that is required because they get a lot of use. So, but if I can, I will answer this question again in a month.
Okay, thank you very much. And could you add one other piece to that? Did you, state of California has a reduction of, to match square footage of turf being removed and being replaced, and they give you money for that. Are we getting any money from the state to do that project?
Not to my knowledge, but I will ask.
Okay. Any
Thank you.
other questions for Cindy? All right. Thanks very much, Cindy. Have
Thank
a good
you.
trip.
Thanks so much.
Okay, we're going to move on to item 5 on the agenda. Mary, if you could lead us on that.
I'd be happy to, Lynn. At the end of December 2024, revenue was over budget by $245,800, or 8% increase. Revenue streams with surpluses are as follows: golf revenue of $50,400, media revenue of $180,800, and recreational revenue of $70,200. Other revenues, including interest, facilities usage fees, personal training revenue, were under budget by $55,500. Expenses are under budget by $273,200 because of favorable expense variances in professional services and supplies. Year-to-date, revenue of $32.1 million exceeded year-to-date expenses of $32 million, resulting in a surplus of $123,000. There's a net positive budget variance, revenue less expenses, of $519,000 for year-to-date December 2024. And now I'd like to ask Todd to give us more detail.
Hello? Yes. For all your patience, obviously we've been focused on obviously NetSuite and, getting to the financials of GRF, certainly important. So we're happy to report the results for the year end. I think overall we should all be very pleased with how we ended, being 122,000 with a surplus on the GRF side. And then on MOD, even though we are showing a deficit, we're actually came $200,000 favorable budget. That budget deficit obviously was due to a surplus of cash. So I just want to make sure when people look at these results that as we move forward in NetSuite, and I know I've spoken to this, the P&L is not necessarily cash, right? And so just keep that in mind, because we do have, surpluses in cash that carry forward from prior years. And so moving into 2024 with the NetSuite implementation, it wasn't that we purposely budgeted a deficit, but so the results are very favorable, I think, in the fact that we ended up at 480. We clawed back 200,000 extra, which basically be a surplus compared to what we wanted, which will roll forward. So I think overall super favorable. As Mary said, we were 24 was very favorable and with golf and with Ann and the media and even recreation. So we had some good revenue gains, even though we were a little soft on member records in the beginning with some of the sales transactions. I think it's just overall very favorable for the year. If you look to the MOD side, obviously we've had conversation in the past where we had originally budgeted a higher amount in professional services for the NetSuite change. We ended up putting a lot of that into temporary help, so there's a little bit of a shift in where those dollars were. But overall, we just kept fighting back. I was hoping that we'd even have a little more gains in November and December, but still a very strong finish for the year, given all the balls in the air with a complete change on the ERP system and all the everyone that had to touch that project. It wasn't just finance and accounting. So overall, very favorable. Obviously, we're going to follow these up. These are unaudited, as you guys know. And I know probably Ben will mention at the audit committee, given the implementation, that audit will be completed for the 630 board. As I've mentioned before, we are in a situation where we're going to continue to revise that. So eventually when we'll close out our old system of GenArc with all those audit adjustments and reflect it. And certainly we'll be coming back to the board as soon as those results are done with the audit to really kind of do more of a deeper dive and review of 2024 to budget and where, how that affects the 25-26 planning. So one other thing I wanted to show is I showed last month, where even though we are going to follow this up next month with Q1 financials for GRF. We are looking at year end. So if you would switch over to, there's a slide there, Jeff, with the bank statement, I believe. I think it's that one. Yeah. That one. One of the things, and I know Dan brought this up in the finance committee, last month we showed we're still watching the cash. And I remember last month I talked about the insurance money coming in and out of our accounts. So even though we are, not looking at current Q1 financials, you can see the cash balances are still very healthy. They're exactly where we thought they would be. So there is no surprises, but certainly be very excited to present the first look at NetSuite financials next month at the meeting for Q1. So, questions?
Any questions for Todd? Dwight.
So Todd, I am pleased too to see that MOD came in better than we expected. Mm-hmm. Deficit is a dirty word.
It is.
And we never even like to bring that up. And we've never in my 5 years on the board deficit budgeted, but we did for 2024 in order to cover these NetSuite costs. And we did that with surplus cash from previous years, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
So given all of that, do you have adequate cash on hand for this year's, for 2025 implementation of NetSuite operating costs?
We do. Obviously, there will still be some, we are still sourcing some of the systems for reservations and stuff like that, so there are still some unknowns as we still try to get scope of work and find some of those final software solutions, Dwight. I'm super comfortable with where we have in the budget and where we are cash-wise for this year. Certainly, we'll talk about this in my deep dive, but certainly that cash planning, as we've talked, you and I personally, and also on the board, I think is one of the missing critical pieces to actually have that, not just for this year, but out another 2 years. So looking forward to doing that. But I'm very comfortable right now where we are with our cash position. And that also includes for a lot of you, if you don't remember back, we actually closed out the pension, right? And getting that decision through and finalized also took some of our cash was planned for. But we are in a very good place given all that. And so we are officially closed pension. So we're moving into, which is $1 million a year savings. So really good news on the horizon, I think.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Todd?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll see you later for your deep dive. Thank you.
You bet.
Just want to let residents know there was a greater discussion about those topics in the Finance Committee on Tuesdays, so you can watch the video of that by going to rossmore.com. Now we'll move on to the general manager's report. Jeff.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, residents. There is always a great pleasure to be able to announce some really good things that are happening in Rossmore and good things that some residents are doing. And this morning, I'd like to highlight the Pickleball for Parkinson's program and really recognize the leader of that, Nancy Munson, who was the kind of the founder of that program. Over the last 2 years, this is entering year 3, they have raised over $100,000 for Parkinson's research. And this year, they have a lofty goal of trying to raise an additional $100,000. So they've actually previously $150,000. They want to raise another $100,000 this year. This is a really fantastic program. It will take place on Monday, June 9th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at Creekside Pickleball Courts in Rossmore. And I believe all residents are welcome to join them and be part of that experience. I also wanted to give just a brief update on the pickleball project that was also discussed at the planning committee meeting, so there could be some further update there. We did receive the permits from the city and other regulatory agency. There are many permits involved in this process. During the March board meeting, the board gave us permission to seek competitive bids for this project once all the permits were received. So now that we have received that, we are working on finalizing the bid package to send out for competitive bid. It should be noted that until the board receives those bids and has a chance to look at the overall budget of the program or of the project, this is not an actual project. We are not out expending, or you won't see construction until a actual contract is awarded. The other main component of that is there is the main irrigation line for the 18-hole Dollar Ranch course that needs to be relocated, and that needs to happen prior to any construction. So that is a major effort going on right now to design that relocation and then to seek bids for doing that project. So a lot going on within the pickleball world. I also wanted to publish a little bit of just some bullet points, general information regarding our insurance program, our master insurance program for the property coverage. Certainly, this is always a topic of concern and conversation with the mutuals, with residents, and with the board, in concern of what is happening with rates, what is our coverage level. So I tried to just put out a lot of bullet points in terms of what is the valuation of property covered by the program, $2.77 billion. What are our coverage limits of $1.26 billion? A little bit of information about our alternative risk transfer policy, which is the first $5 million of coverage. And then there's always questions about, well, what is our relationship like with our broker, Gallagher? And how are they compensated? So there's some information about that in there as well. All of that information is likely to generate more questions than answers, but if people do have questions specific to the policy, please do not hesitate to reach out and we will give a lot more information. In terms of employee transitions, before I get into that, I wanted to take a second and recognize one of our directors that is retiring, Eric Wong, who is in the back here. Eric, stand up and wave. Eric is our Director of Human Resources. He is departing us for greener pastures and a more relaxing life, I believe. But we greatly appreciate the work that Eric has done for the employees, for the organization, and been a tremendous asset and a good guiding force for us. In other news, we have some employees that have begun employment with us. Marcia Gaston, receptionist at the front. If you come into Gateway, you'll see her there. Daniel Marklees, senior financial analyst. Tracy Peralot, fitness trainer. And Casey Shelton is finance and operations coordinator with accounting.
That's it.
Okay, any questions for Jeff? All right, thank you, Jeff. Maxine, Maxine, do we have any residence forum speakers?
We do. We have 3. So please gather over here so we can not have to wait in between. The first one is Chin Xiao. Second one is Matt Muniz. I hope I said that right. And the third speaker is Susan Lieber. Please
Residents
state-
have up to 2 minutes.
Chin, we can't hear you. Maybe get closer?
Okay. My name is
Good.
Chin Xiao, 2605 Second Indian Drive, number 4. I'm a Chinese pastor of Rasmo Chinese Church. I come here to ask for help because we have one room reservation problem lingering around for several months already. And last year, we had that room called Mulligan. It's the small little room in the creek side, just across from the big, club room. Okay, club room is our church Sunday worship, and this room we use it for the prayer meeting before worship, and also after worship we have Sunday school. Okay, that's the purpose. And this room we have been using for several years, and last year we have a whole year contract. The number is R30159. Okay, so we have a last year contract. We think about this is sort of grandfather's law. It shall carry over to 2025, but it's not. Okay, so once we get rejected, we meet with the Mr. Z. Dilan, the manager of the booking, in March, I think, last month, try to ask why, and we didn't get really answer. He said going to give us answer, and the email sent to us just say they're unable to give us this room. So I don't quite understand all the new policy or whatever, but I just come here, ask you guys help. This room, small little room, we've been using that for several years. Nobody use it. And even this year, we don't have a contract. But we just showing up Sunday morning earlier, 9 o'clock. And nobody use it. So we use that room for 4 months already, So we come here, request, is that possible? That room, if nobody
I am
requests
sorry, that is time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chin.
Bye.
Matt?
Good morning. My name is Matt Muniz. I'm at 2132 Golden Rain Road, entry 13. And I'm here today to point out what I believe are some of the recent board actions that are not following the guidelines that are listed in GRF's mission statement, vision statement, or statement of values. The mission statement, and I'll paraphrase due to time, is that the mission of GRF shall be to provide services to all GRF members that on a nonprofit basis. I believe in 2023, when the board doubled the rates of RV storage, that doubling of rates actually provided profits to GRF. The vision statement states that the vision of Rossmore is to be an inclusive, active adult community. I have heard from some board members in private conversations have called people who live here that are not wealthy riffraff, and we need to get rid of the riffraff. The statement of values states that to achieve our mission, we will endeavor to be sensitive to the challenges of aging. I believe eliminating weekend bus services for people who do not have transportation with their own vehicles is in direct conflict with being sensitive. Also to foster transparent, physically responsible representative self-government, I believe that the pickleball court is not physically responsible at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan?
Hi, my name is Susan Lieber. I live at 626 Terra California Drive, number 2, and I'm here today to ask you all to please approve the garden, which is on your agenda, I believe. We're calling it the Judy Appleman Garden. This is in memory of a dear friend of ours who passed away suddenly. A group of friends have gathered, and we've collected almost $6,000. We're working with John from landscaping, and it's going to be a wonderful capital improvement for Rossmore. The garden will be against the fence in the backyard of the Dollar House, adjacent to the pool, with trees and a bench and beautiful flowers. And it's something that I hope many people will come and enjoy. So I'm asking you to approve that. Thank you.
Deborah, do we have any online speakers?
There are no Zoom forum speakers. That concludes the residents forum.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, speakers.
Leanne,
Yes.
I take offense to the comments of board members saying we need to get rid of riffraff. That is unfounded, and I don't know where that comes from, but I don't want anybody to think that this board thinks that at all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 8 on our agenda. Ben Bernstein, can you give us the audit committee report, please?
Good morning. I'm presenting highlights of the April 7th Audit Committee meeting. One of the first items that we discussed was audits. The GRF audit completion date has been extended to and must be completed by June 30th, 2025. However, the audits for the mutuals are again a top priority, with GRF financials a lower priority, at least as of that last meeting. The next audit committee meeting is scheduled for June 2nd, however, may have to be pushed to a later date depending on when the draft financial statements are ready for review. The next main item that we discussed was the audit committee self-assessment review. Merrick Lipson presented the review of the third audit committee self-assessment. This assessment allows the committee to reflect on how it currently operates and recommend areas for change. Most of the responses to the 57 topics for consideration, yes, this was an extensive spreadsheet to go over, most of the responses were positive. However, we did discuss topics where responses were mixed, and I'm just going to present some highlights of that. First, members suggested that a checklist for meeting planning be developed, as well as scheduling regular meetings with the CFO and auditors during the year. Committee members currently rely on the chair to develop meeting agendas. Committee members and the GRF staff attending that meeting agreed that it would be useful for the chair to check in with committee members and staff prior to each meeting to see if there were specific items they wanted to add to the agenda. Also, there's not a formal mechanism to stay current on accounting topics, and committee members rely on staff and auditors for update information. Todd Arterburn suggested that he could share updates on topics that he received from the auditors with the committee. We had a brief discussion of the audit committee charter, and one item was that it should include monitoring audit timelines and reporting for mutual audits. And I see that that's actually an item for the board to review today. The committee relies on the GRF board liaison, currently the treasurer, to provide information on the strategic direction of GRF. And it was recommended that the audit committee chair attend some GRF board meetings to keep current with board priorities and actions. There's probably some other things that could be done along those lines. And I have made an effort to attend, at least by Zoom, some of the other board meetings. And the committee also recommended the internal control audit and hopes to move forward on request for proposal plan for 2026. That is, audit to be conducted then. Proposal responses are important so that funds for this audit can be included in the GRF budget. And finally, the audit committee thanked Merrick for his efforts in putting this self-assessment together. And the last item we discussed related to the enterprise risk management schedule that actually Jeff had presented in a previous meeting. So we reviewed ERM potential control items that relate to key features in the NetSuite system that should be considered for inclusion in the ERM plan. We discussed some recommendations for modern technologies and tools that should be included as part of the ERM plan, along the lines of artificial intelligence and cybersecurity. I mean, there have been some remarkable technological developments related to controls, and the Institute of Internal Auditors has some good references for the items along those lines. That concludes my highlights, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
It was a great report, Ben. Thank you. Any questions for Ben? Dwight?
And Ben, I just want to commend you and the committee for your self-assessment and your great service in the audit committee. It's not always understood what you guys do. I happen to understand it because I chaired the committee at one point in time. But I was disturbed a little bit in the report that I was given attribution for starting the self-assessment. It was Merrick Lipson who did that when I was on the committee. So thank Merrick, and I thank the committee for continuing that effort.
Well, thank you for that.
Thank you, Ben. All right, moving on to the next resident member committee, Finance. Dan Ring, if you could give us your report.
Good morning. We met on Tuesday, and as Todd stated, the December 2024 preliminary financial statements were discussed. GRF showed a small profit, while MOD showed a loss, but it was less than budgeted. As Todd also stated, he took most of my report already, so you've heard this. These are preliminary statements subject to audit adjustments. Final statements should be available in June. We are also anticipating that January through April 2025 financial statements will be available for the May Finance Committee meeting. We then had a great discussion regarding the MTF fees and the various exemptions. We received some really good information from Jerome's group that laid out the exemptions and walked through them. We're still waiting for some more information regarding the location of the sales and the reason for the exemption, but overall, it was a very favorable discussion. And in 2025, the sales have just really been great. Unit sales through the first quarter were 122 in total, of which 93 generated a transfer fee. This is an increase from 2024 when sales were 94 with fees of 71. Revenue of $1,309,500 for 2025 is up $374,000 compared to 2024. Overall, just really a great first quarter of sales, and hope the trend continues. Excuse me. A motion was made and seconded to recommend a capital budget expenditure of $221,924 for the Tice Pool replastering capital project, and authorize the general manager to execute an agreement with Chambers Pool, Inc. to be paid from the trust fund. That motion passed unanimously. Lastly, it was noted that this would be Adrian Byron's final meeting as a member of the Finance Committee, as he will be transitioning to the GRF board next month. The committee expressed sincere appreciation for Adrian's years of service and commended his ability to distill and simplify complex information, noting he will be greatly missed, and wished him well in his new position on the GRF board. Thank you, and I'll answer any questions.
Any questions for Dan? Thank you very much, Dan. I just want to again tell the residents that the descriptions of the factors around the membership transfer fee, the fee paid by residents moving into Rossmore, was incredibly informative. So if you're interested in that topic, you can watch the Finance Committee video on rossmore.com by clicking GRF Meetings and Agendas, and then there's a tab for that. Okay, moving on, we'll go to the Golf Advisory Board. Burke Ferrari, if you could give us that report.
Good morning. Good morning. At the Golf Advisory Committee meeting this month, there was a usual update on the pickleball building and the effect that the movement of the irrigation line would have on the golf course. I suspect it will be doing that every month until the building is finished. One of the items that came up during the meeting was when Mark mentioned that we would be hosting an organization called PGA Hope. Since this is an outreach of Rossmore to the local community, I thought I'd say something more about that. PGA Hope. PGA is the Professional Golfers of America. PGA Hope is one of the charitable groups within PGA. Their mission statement describes what they do pretty well. It's to change and save veterans and active duty military service members' lives through the power of golf. They had usually they have a one-day event at different golf courses, but they also have 6 to 8 week clinics for people who may have disabilities or who want to learn to play golf. And in 2024, they served 17,000 veterans. There are 550 locations throughout the United States, including Rossmore is one of them. And our event was yesterday. There was 40 people for lunch and followed by 24 players who had a round of golf. So kudos to Mark and the golf shop for what they've done there. Moving on to the membership. At the end of last year, there was total of, to the 4 clubs, there was a total of 790 members. After the renewals for 2025, that number dropped to 693, or 12%, which is quite normal. People leave, they stop playing golf, or they pass away, whatever. In March, so that was in March, and in April, the number had risen now to 719, and we should expect to see that go up slightly each month for people moving in and starting to play. So, any questions?
Any questions from Bert? All right, thanks very much. Okay, we'll move on to item 9 on the agenda, the board committee reports. James, did you want to give an overview of compensation, or should we go to Eric?
Well, yeah, I was going to invite Eric to come up to do the presentation.
Good morning. My last address to all of you. Got a few words, but let's take care of business first. So we met earlier this month as a compensation committee. There's nothing that we voted on, but we had it was kind of a grounding session to go over some important concepts and topics that affect the decisions of the compensation committee. We talked about our group health plans, both the history of increases that we have and utilization of that. We talked about trends within the benefits world, the marketplace, things that we need to be aware of that are going to potentially impact the costs that we have. So we have good measures in place for cost controls and increases. We have a great benefits broker that will give us heads ups and warnings. We'll enter in this summer with more discussions about what benefits look like in 2026. But it will still give the committee an opportunity to evaluate what things may happen, and so we can make important decisions for cost control. We also talked a little bit about history of the utilization, and we have done some great things with that. With the help of our brokers, is being able to evaluate different programs. I've shared before here that we made a big change last year to switch over to a high deductible plan, which has helped control costs both for the foundation as well as for employees. So it's things like that that we'll continue to take a look at with just the trends and analysis of how benefits are going. We talked about that kind of as a different topic, but they kind of are related together, the differences within generations. And I've also shared here before is that we have 4 different working generations here. And it'll be important for the committee as we think about compensation benefits, culture of staff here, is what things that we can do to help keep and retain employees. And so there are things that generations look for. Things that we look for as baby boomers are different than those that are in the Generation Z or the millennials who are looking for, like for example, millennials are looking for purpose and collaboration. Gen Z looks for authenticity and technology. And these are interesting topics to think about broadly, but when you think about running an organization, what does that mean for staff? If these are the things that motivate them, are we creating an environment, both operating as well as culturally, that appeal to individuals to come and want to work for us? I'm excited about what NetSuite's going to bring to Rossborough, because that does appeal to those who, excuse me, look towards technology, and it's something that will probably be a motivator. I think of, reflecting when I first came here, we had paper timesheets, and it startled me that we even did something like that. Now we're far ahead of that with our electronic systems. But that's just an example, is that when you're trying to attract talent that can come here and utilize their abilities, they're looking at things that what will excite them, what will engage them, and those are the types of things that the committee looks at. Not simply just pay and benefits, but things that will help enhance the opportunities for employees who want to come here. When we also talked about, other things that we don't always take a look at. When we talk about compensation, it's not just about pay, hourly rates and salary. We have to consider other costs as well to the foundation, such as Social Security benefits, workers' compensation. There are other state benefits that we're required to provide, like paid leave. So all of these add up. So when you talk about compensation and when you think about employees' pay, it is greater than that when you think about the cost to the foundation. We also talked about leave of absences as well as in how that impacts staff and our ability to serve the community. As an example, we talk about the importance of acquiring talent and also retaining talent. And we know that if we lose employees, that there can interrupt service. There is a learning curve for somebody coming on board. There is a distribution of work that has to go to existing staff. But we don't always stop to think about, well, how do leave of absences affect us? And it really does that in the same way. So as an employer, we're required by law to provide leave of absences. But when you think of somebody who may go on leave under job protected leave up to 12 weeks, possibly more, that is a service interruption. So these are all things that are important for us to consider as a committee, as well as a board and community, to think about what are the effects that a loss of staff, either them leaving or on a limited basis, how that could affect services here. So really, this, again, was more of grounding information to take in consideration as we go into the spring and summer, which are our planning months for compensation and benefits. So I'll stop here on that part. Do you have any questions about that?
Any questions for Eric?
Okay.
Okay.
Let me switch gears then, since I have the podium.
Okay.
I really,
All right.
I do want to thank each of you sincerely. My time here has been very meaningful. So I want to thank each of you here. I want to thank board members present, as well as those who have gone on, if you're listening in, that I've appreciated really working for all of you. The board has been both gracious and inspirational in your support of me and staff. I can't think of a better place to retire and to hang up my HR hat. The greatest memories I have, aside from all the planning and great things we've done with HR initiatives and things, is really the events that we've had, where you've come together, you've offered your help and service, where our employees have come together, we've had the senior team here, and just being able to step back and see all of that together, and to me, it's just a poignant expression of how this all works together to make this organization work with the board leadership and with staff. So again, my sincere thanks to all of you. I appreciate each of you.
Well, Eric, I personally want to thank you for helping the board understand the intricacies of employment here. And I especially want to thank you for your global approach to that and how you give us insights and the little details that aren't just cut and dry. So that helps us understand what's needed to support our employees, and it gives us a better understanding of what's involved with employment. And for me, it's been invaluable because it's just all new information. So the fact that you're able to describe that to us in such a understanding way has been incredibly helpful. So thank you.
I do want to leave with an introduction to my successor, Arnold. There we are. Arnold Saviano. He's been a member of our team. He probably, as I put in the paper, you've seen the article, probably one of, if not the best hire that I've ever made. So you're in good hands being able to hand HR over to Arnold. He's ready to go. Actually, as I've declined and towards my exit, he's been taking things on. He'll be a great asset he is a great asset to this organization, and I have every bit of confidence in him to being able to take the helm of HR. So, welcome to Arnold.
Good morning, board. Good morning, residents. I just want to say I'm really, really excited. Oh, sorry. Good morning. I just want to say that I'm really, really excited. For this opportunity. I've learned a lot from Eric, and he's still here with us, and he is still sharing all his knowledge. And I'm really looking forward to work with all of you. I've been doing it indirectly. Eric has been passing all the knowledge to you and information. And again, I just want to continue working with you along and with whatever you guys need from me as well. Thank you.
We're very glad to have you, Arnold. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Any comments for Eric or Arnold? Dwight?
So, Eric, your professionalism and integrity have been demonstrated again and again to this board. That has been very valuable over the past 5 years as we all move through the challenges of COVID. Remember that? And you've just done an amazing job in keeping that compensation management system alive and well that serves this community so well. So thank you for all your contributions to Rossmore. You will be missed. But Arnold, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mary.
I want to say to Eric, you have provided us with numbers to help us understand in an understandable way, because much of what you have helped us learn was not known to us until you presented the information and helped us understand and make decisions that we feel confident in. So thank you so much for making all of this information understandable to us over these years, and welcome, Arnold.
Thank you, Maria.
Ted.
So I want to thank you for how you helped me on the board, and I'm sure the other people on the board, for guidance on helping us making good decisions on things that had to do with employees and different stuff that was happening. And I just wanted to thank you for that. It was very helpful, and you're going to be really missed. And Arnold, good job. We're looking forward to working with you.
Same.
James.
Okay, so over the past few years, I had the privilege of being on the compensation committee and working with Eric quite closely. And I just want to say that, with my background in HR, I was very, very impressed with Eric's professionalism, his working knowledge of HR. And I greatly feel that with those attributes, he greatly helped improve the overall quality of the workforce here in Rossmore. So I just want to say, as a member of the board and also as a resident of Rossmore, I just want to thank you for everything you've done over the past few years. And as you begin your retirement on May 1, you're going to be amazed how quickly you're going to forget about working. So go out there, find things to do, fun things to do, enjoy your life, and I just wish you all the best in your retirement.
Thanks, everyone. I do look forward to my retirement years.
Carol.
I also want to thank you, Eric, for everything that you have done. You've just had you're so dedicated. You have just really had a thoughtful approach to looking at the employees' needs and also to the success of GRF. It's been a pleasure working with you on the Compensation Committee. We're going to really miss you. And I know you'll have a wonderful time in your semi-retirement. And I also want to thank you for leaving us with Arnold and leaving us in very capable hands. And that really helps us a lot. So thank you. We're going to miss you.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to miss you. Okay. Moving on to item 9B, Planning Committee. Cheryl, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I do have a couple of things. One, I want to highlight the fact that we started on our transit study proposal or program and had a very good discussion regarding transit. Some of the things that were looked at in the study are looking at obtaining some smaller vehicles. We also took a look at transitioning from the current dispatch system to something that is more of a software with an app-type based program and online reservation qualifications. And then we also took a look at the Lyft concierge program. So I think it was very positive. And again, I would encourage people who are interested in transit to take a look at the Planning Committee meeting minutes in that regard. It also resulted in a really good discussion, and that will be item number 3 on our agenda, regarding reimbursement of the current Rossmore Fund weekend ridership program from the GRF. And we also had some very good discussions on marketing, and I'm going to turn it over to Dwight to talk about that.
Well, and Cheryl, there's an extensive report in the minutes from the Planning Committee meeting, and we have a couple of action items coming up here that I think Ann Peterson is going to talk about. So I'll defer to those.
Okay, so the first one we want to talk about is a recommendation that the Marketing Task Force would like the board's approval to include in the final report, that we officially rebrand GRF and MOD as Rossmore Walnut Creek and Rossmore Walnut Creek Property Management. We understand that inside the gate, you're going to have more nicknames. You may end up with RWC or just Rossmore. We understand that. But from an official standpoint, in terms of branding, we really do think that it's important that we have one brand name. I'd like to walk you through sort of the process that the Marketing Task Force went through in order to come to this decision. So it started with the fact that the Marketing Task Force itself was brought together and formed because we were facing some significant challenges with branding. Starts with the fact that Rossmore has a lot of confusion around the home ownership model. A lot of folks hear senior living and think assisted living, and they don't necessarily understand that we are 100% owned by the residents. So that's the first point. The second, we're a very diverse population, not just in terms of demographics, but also in terms of the educational background and socioeconomics. At the time that the task force was formed, we were dealing with rising insurance costs and the financial implications because of that. There's also, especially after the pandemic, we went through a great amount of employee turnover. As Eric mentioned, there's a learning curve when new employees come in. So that becomes a factor with the brand as well. Risks, we're always going to face these. We live in California. Wildfires and earthquakes, they're a part of our life. But Rossmore also has a really unique situation because of the way we're set up with that independent ownership model. And that's that we have very limited aging in place resources. So we started looking at all of these challenges, but we kept coming back to one over and over again. And that's the confusion around the name. We have way too many identities. We're known as Golden Rain Foundation, GRF, Rossmore Walnut Creek, the Trust. And as a result, those who've lived here a really long time may know what each one of those things means, but there's a lot of residents, especially incoming, who have no idea. We also have to contend with the fact that we're not the only Rossmore. There's one in Orange County, there's one in New Jersey. I even discovered there's a little town in Kansas named Rossmore. And there's also more than one Golden Rain Foundation. And so we do have that confusion of getting mixed up with other properties. What the task force quickly realized is that while not everyone knows what Golden Rain Foundation is, everyone knows, or most everyone knows, what Rossmore and Walnut Creek are. So that's how we landed on the idea that we really wanted to focus on location as part of the brand. So combining Rossmore with Walnut Creek and everything that Walnut Creek represents. So you're talking about that vibrant retail and restaurant industry, the safety, low crime rate that comes with being in Walnut Creek, that sense of community, the high quality of life. Those are all things that are already part of Rossmore. It's part of Walnut Creek as well. So that's how we came up with Rossmore Walnut Creek. Here's how the name brand would be used. All GRF entities would now become Rossmore Walnut Creek. So you're talking about internal and external communication. Golden Rain Foundation Board would become Rossmore Walnut Creek Board. The Trust Estate Fund would become the Rossmore Walnut Creek Capital Budget. MOD, we're not talking about the mutuals here, we're just talking about the Mutual Operations Department, would become Rossmore Walnut Creek Property Management. I just want to emphasize one more time, we're not changing the names of any mutuals. This is just the GRF and MOD. Again, we recognize informal names are going to happen. We're not discouraging that. We're only talking about from an official capacity, Rossmore Walnut Creek would be the name. In terms of rebranding, what does that mean? We are already using the name in a lot of places. The website has it, our letterhead, business cards, all the fleet and vehicles have Rossmore Walnut Creek on the doors or on the back. Some of the uniforms already have it, the promotional material, and it is our primary logo. Also, as a reminder, the board did already approve that we register Rossmore Walnut Creek as our doing business as name. So where would implementation still be needed? We'd be looking at things like email signatures, the voice messages that are on the phone machines, our job postings, our documents. For uniforms, we would replace the Rossmore only logo with Rossmore Walnut Creek and phase that in. These are all no or low cost options. It's just a matter of staff time. The potential high cost would be the front entrance sign, which right now just says Rossmore. You can go the cheap method, a couple $1,000s, you add the word Walnut Creek, you're good to go, or the more expensive option, which would be higher end, probably around $50,000, to completely tear down that sign and start over. But that's really the only high cost that would be involved in the rebranding. The biggest challenge we're going to have is communication. This is my territory. So this would involve staff creating templates that everyone on staff would then be using and rolling these out. We want to be sure there's consistent messaging that starts with staff, and then develop a communications plan that would help the residents to also understand why we've made this change and what the change is. We also need to get buy-in, especially with messaging with our real estate agents who sell Rossmore and also with our vendors. And we have already talked with planning, finance, the board a little bit about how the marketing task force is going to recommend rebranding rossmore.com as a marketing-only website and moving residents to My Rossmore. So the redesign would certainly help with the communication plan for this rebrand. But I also want to emphasize, it will also impact the timeline. We don't have enough staff to do 3 major things at once. So we would be starting with the websites, a soft launch with the rebrand, and then a harder rebrand for the name would come after the websites are launched. So why are we doing this at all? In addition to those challenges, we start again going back to, we want less brand identity confusion. We think that it's really important to have that consistency. The consistent messaging among all the stakeholders is so important. What the real estate agents are saying should be the same thing that staff is saying. We want to align with Rossmore Walnut Creek's mission, vision, and the value statements. The board has already approved the mission and vision. Today, you'll also hear about the value statements. This will allow us also to better target our prospective residents as well as adult children. That's one of the things the marketing task force discovered along the way. It isn't just the actual residents moving in. Their adult children have a very big role in who moves in here. It will also help with SEO, that's search engine optimization. So if you go in Google and type in Senior Living Walnut Creek, you want us to be first. We should be way up there. And rebranding by putting Walnut Creek as part of our name, that helps us to really capture the audience here. And it will also help to strengthen our tie with the city of Walnut Creek. So those, again, are all of the reasons why the marketing task force feels that it's important to rebrand as Rossmore Walnut Creek. Any questions?
Any questions? Dwight.
Well, if I could just say, Ann, thank you for that presentation. You really summarized a lot of the work the task force has been up to in this regard. This is an important step in getting consistent messaging through our name, and then there will be other things to follow. Thank you.
I just had a quick question about the SEO. Like, I understand the premise of that, but how would would it just be because people are searching Rossmore Walnut Creek, or they're bringing up Walnut Creek and Rossmore pops up?
So when you have, if your brand name, in this case, Rossmore Walnut Creek, anytime you have something in your actual name, the way that a website works is you have what's called H1. That's your primary headline on a website. I'll tell you right now, I've already changed ours to Rossmore Walnut Creek because it does help with SEO. But when you're keying in on that phrase, when the little spiders that are in the Google universe are searching, they're looking for those keywords. So if somebody's looking for things like senior living, and senior living is sprinkled all over our website, they're looking for Walnut Creek, it keys more into that. But here's the other thing. This is one of the things we're looking at. Can we purchase RossmoreWalnutCreek.com as a name? It's a lot easier to do it if it is our actual name, because I can go to the broker and say, this is actually who we are. We have a right to explore purchasing this name, as opposed to somebody who's just maybe lives here who says, ooh, I'd like to have that name. They don't have the same sort of background and value interest in it that we would. And again, that would help us. I'm not saying we would move from Rossmore.com, but you might have RossmoreWalnutCreek.com as your name and redirect to Rossmore.com. Now you have two places where you're able to build into SEO for the digital products.
Any questions? I had another question. Like today, we're not actually approving the expenditure for these products or these changes. We're just agreeing, correct me if I'm wrong, agreeing that this needs to be done in the future. Is that?
Well, I think there needs to be a recognition in adoption of the name change that there will be some costs, and it's largely associated with the sign at Tice Valley Boulevard and Rossmore Parkway that doesn't follow the brand colors nor the brand name of Rossmore. So there is recognition there will be cost to this. We don't know what it is yet.
You're actually not voting today on changing the sign. You're only talking about, yes, voting to make the name change. It will be a later board that will come back and actually vote on some of the particulars with the implementation.
Okay, I just wanted to make that clear. Mary, it looks like your hand's going up. No? I'm sorry? Is your hand going up?
Just to make clear, too, this action doesn't give us staff any authority to go out and start expending those. It's whatever's kind of in the existing budget and workflow that we can accomplish.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Yeah, can I make a motion? I'd like to make the motion that we adopt as our brand name, Rossmore Walnut Creek.
I second.
I'll second.
Okay, Carol seconded, or Mary. Any further discussion? Okay, Deborah, could you do roll call, please?
Absolutely. Hamachi?
Yes.
Hines?
Yes.
Topper?
Yes.
Hurt?
Yes.
Bentley?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Lair?
Yes.
And Walker?
As a member of the RWC board, yes.
It's unanimous.
I will never say RWC. I will say the whole Rossmore Walnut Creek. Just say it.
Okay, all right, we'll hold you to that. Okay, going on to item 9B2, and could you also give us a summary of that?
So again, the board, So, thank you. The board has already approved from the marketing task force the mission statement and the vision statement. Today, we're rounding out the third part of the brand, which is the value statements. The values are essentially the behaviors that Rossmore Walnut Creek wants to promote among the community. And this is what the marketing task force has come up with. Beautiful surroundings, connection and community, fun, recreation, and lifelong learning, inclusivity and respect, independent, low-maintenance living, safety, and security. What the marketing task force is asking is that the board approve this so that it becomes part of the branding guide, which will be part of the final report that you'll learn about next month.
Any questions for Ann? Any discussion on the item? Dwight?
I will add that the marketing task force looked at competing communities, similar communities to ours, their websites, lots of materials to try to understand what values were out there in the universe, and then interpreted them for Rossmore that fit the mission. And by the way, it's the marketing mission statement and it's the marketing vision statement. So we're talking about marketing values here. So a lot of work went into this, and I want to specifically thank Kathleen Schaub for her great work on pulling this together for the task force.
The other thing I'd like to just add with that is it's actually Rossmore Walnut Creek. It's not just the marketing task force mission vision. This will be part of that brand that you just accepted for the name.
Good distinction, thank you. Any other questions? All right, do we have a motion? Carol?
I move that we adopt the statement of values proposed by the marketing task force to accompany the mission and vision statements that the board recently approved.
I'll second.
Absolutely. Hamachi? Yes. Hines?
Yes.
Topper? Yes. Hirsch?
Yes.
Bentley?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Blair?
Yes.
And Walker?
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Okay, thank you, Ann. Moving on to 9, what time is it? 9:03. Is Kelsey in the audience? Oh, there she is.
So one of the things we spoke about at the planning committee was the reimbursement for the Easy Rider program for the Rossmore Fund. The Rossmore Fund began the program as a pilot program in December and continued it through 2025 in January for reimbursement of weekend transportation for shared ride, taxi, limousine services, while the transportation weekend service is on hold. And the planning committee wanted to discuss it during the meeting today to whether or not to reimburse the Rossmore Fund.
Jeff?
Just before you begin your debate, as we talked about, or I recognized the work of the pickleball for Parkinson's, the Rossmore Fund is another example. If I could just take a minute to recognize the tremendous work that foundation does on behalf of residents in this community. And this program is just another great example of what they have put forth to meet a need, to support residents. So kudos to that organization that has been around in this community for many years, and the work that they continue to do is just so valuable. So I wanted to thank them for stepping up with the Easy Rider program, but everything else that they really do for this community.
I too want to thank Claire Wolf, the president of the Rossmore Fund. I understand she's not here today, but that was a wonderful gift that she gave the residents here in Rossmore at a time when we were having difficulty staffing weekend transportation. So I thank that committee or that fund and that board. Any discussions, questions? Dwight?
Well, and maybe just as a little more background, in the planning committee, we had lots of discussion about this, but, weekend service is something that is promised to our residents, and Rossmore Fund graciously stepped forward to take care of that. But at this point in time, until we have that weekend service reinstated, I think it's appropriate for GRF or RWC to reimburse the Rossmore Fund for those efforts. At our planning meeting, we talked about exploring the idea of this reimbursement to the Rossmore Fund. And Kelsey, thank you for reaching out to Claire Wolf to discuss that. Claire called me a week or so ago and explained to me that the Rossmore Fund generously supports a number of things, like in the counseling office, they may provide a honorarium to a speaker at a conference or something like that. And their board viewed this as a service to residents. But when I told her it was something that GRF promises residents, she said, "Oh, maybe we need to rethink this. I'll take it back to our board," which she did. And in fact, this morning, I got a text from her, and she said, "Sorry, I can't make it to today's meeting as some family stuff came up. Please feel free to say that the Rossmore Fund Board is in agreement with your proposal to reimburse the Rossmore Fund for money expended for the Easy Rider program. Thanks, Claire." So we appreciate all of their efforts. And with that, I'd like to make a motion, if that would be acceptable. So I would move that GRF reimburse the Rossmore Fund for the Easy Rider program on a quarterly basis out of the operating fund until such time as GRF reinstates weekend service.
Do we need a dollar amount in that motion?
It's going to vary.
Yeah, the current amount through March 16th is $2,218.46. So this would be on a quarterly basis, depending on the expenditure, until we have a program in place to replace that.
Okay. And the second was Cheryl.
Discussion. Question.
Sure.
Okay. Where will that money come from? Out of the transportation budget?
Yes.
Okay, and then does anybody have a problem that there's no limit on this? I mean, if it's $100,000 a year, I'm just making that up. Do we have $100,000 to reimburse this?
So it should be noted, and Kelsey could elaborate on this, this program definitely goes above and beyond what our previous weekend service was. The usage has been fairly limited, as you can see by the dollar amount, and we do hope to have a replacement program in place in the very near future. But that's a discussion for the board. This program goes beyond the boundaries of what our current service ever did on the weekends, and hour-wise. So if you'd like to put some parameters on it, or if, for example, the GoGo Grandparent Program reimburses the first, or pays for the first $10 of a ride with a limit of 2 one-way trips per day. This is kind of unlimited in the amount. So it's really at the discretion of the board.
Yeah.
James.
I have no problems with reimbursing. I just have a problem with it sounds like it's open-ended. There's no, I mean, everything we approve budget-wise or expenditure-wise, we put a cap on. But right now, the way it's stated, it's like we'll reimburse it until such time we are able to provide service. It takes us 5 years to do that. Did we reimburse for 5 years? I have no idea.
Ted.
As I understand the Rossmore Fund, this is not similar. It's not riding in a car is similar to the GoGo Grandparent kind of a thing, but this is not similar in the way that we do GoGo Grandparent. This is there's a qualifier involved for the person to be able to go through the Rossmore Fund. So I don't see the amount going just blowing up and going to everything, because I believe there is some kind of qualifier that they have to do.
There is not. It is, there's no qualifier. The only qualifier is that you're a current member.
Cheryl?
So I think I heard around $2,000 for the first quarter. Is that correct? So if we capped it, say at 8,000 or 10,000, and then if it were to exceed that, they would have to come back to us. Would that be something that would be acceptable to the board?
Dwight is next, I think.
And I'd like to ask a question before I think about that.
Yeah.
Kelsey, how long until we have a weekend transit service plan in place?
We are working on some options that we discussed at planning with the Lyft concierge program or something like that. And we are planning to come back to planning in the near future. I would think within the next quarter we will have further presentations and then approval, hopefully by the board, of a concept.
So near future in the next quarter, so maybe within the next 6 months?
Yes.
So with that, I would be comfortable in amending the motion to not exceed $10,000 at this point in time with, the ability to come back.
So you're saying 10, 10 of the as a total reimbursement or quarterly? I mean, what's the parameter?
Up to a cumulative total of $10,000.
Up to, okay. James?
Again, given from my experience, how we do business, I would be more comfortable with, we know what the first quarter amount is. That if we want to approve that amount, I'm okay with it because we have exact dollar amount. Next quarter, we can look at the numbers for what was spent in that quarter. If we choose to approve that amount, we can do that. We wait for the third quarter, see what that amount is. That way, if the proposed transportation gets delayed for who knows how long, given we know things don't seem to always fall in place that quickly, I'm more comfortable with doing it on a quarterly basis, but looking back at what was spent and then approving that amount at the end of each quarter.
I tend to agree with that. I mean, we have the quarterly amount in our board packet. I would be more comfortable approving it on a quarterly basis, given their statistics.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's a great way to do it.
I like that.
Dwight, do you want to modify your motion?
Well, point of order, I already did.
Okay, so what is it?
And point of order, I must clarify, when you amend a motion, Dwight did state he would like to amend the motion for the amount not to exceed $10,000. There was no second, and you didn't articulate where you'd like to insert that language in the full motion. So we need a second.
I always count on you for that, Deborah.
So who seconds the amendment, and then I'll get the clarification afterwards. No second? It fails. And so it's back to the original motion that Dwight had, and you would like to move forward with that, except you'd like to can you restate the full motion so that they can see if they want to change to the quarterly basis?
So based on my Rossmore memory, I cannot begin to restate the original motion.
So I think what we want to say is that...
You can withdraw it and make a new motion.
Yeah, just do that.
Do you happen to have what I said?
I don't have it right in front of me because it was a rapid fire.
Oh.
But I do have...
Okay.
So could I suggest a motion to you?
No, I will remove my original motion.
Understood. I'm striking it.
Okay, so we're starting over since he retracted his motion. Okay.
Understood.
Does anybody have a motion?
Here goes. So I would move that we reimburse the Rossmore Fund for the past quarter for the Easy Rider program, and that we consider future reimbursement on a quarterly basis going forward.
I'll second.
Discussions. Mary seconded. Discussion. Do we want to put a dollar amount on that quarterly reimbursement since we have it in our board packet?
We do know it's $2,000.
Here's the dollar amount. We don't?
Well, it's not only through March 16th, so we don't have the full quarter. I think it's all right as stated, although it should say paid out of the operating fund.
Okay, so Mary seconded that. Any further discussion? All right, Deborah, roll call, please.
I just want to follow a clarifying question to the president. Mr. Walker mentioned a clarification addition to that motion of the location, the trust fund. Did you want that articulated in the motion?
To be paid from the operating fund.
Pardon me. Would the maker of the motion and the seconder agree to that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And you'd like to move on with the roll call?
Yes, please.
Okay. Hamaji?
Yes.
Hines?
Yes.
Topper?
Yes.
Hurt?
Yes.
Bentley?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Laird?
Yes.
And Walker?
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Let's see. We're going to move on to item 9C1. Jeff, if you could give us an update on that.
So the board gave us some direction to take an item to the policy committee for consideration of the audit committee charter. One of the key aspects of the audit committee is to oversee the GRF trust MOD audits. The concept was to ask the committee to have some oversight of the mutual audits from the perspective of what is being delivered by MOD on behalf of the mutuals. So the task is not to oversee the details of the audit, but rather the process of completing the audit. So the timeline, the deliverable, and so forth. So the audit committee will not actually be delving into the specifics of any audit. That is the responsibility of the mutuals, the individual mutuals, but rather have some oversight in just making sure that the work of MOD on behalf of the mutuals in the management agreement is being processed and completed on a timely basis. In the attachment 9C1-3, there is a red line version. There's a new addition. It simply says, monitor the audit timelines, progress, and reporting based on GRF's duties as property manager for the mutual corporations. Audits conducted by the independent external auditors hired by each mutual, ensuring timely communication to the GRF board regarding key milestones, delays, and outcomes relevant to the mutuals. And then there is a second portion that says, in coordination with the mutual operations and GRF chief financial officer, the committee shall receive and review periodic updates on the status of mutual audits, including adherence to established timelines, audit progress, and any challenges that may impact the completion or quality of the audits. The committee shall serve as a conduit to keep the GRF board informed of such matters and ensure that mutual audits results are communicated in a timely and transparent manner. So those are the additional language added to the charter. If there's any questions.
Any questions for Jeff? Okay.
I'd like to.
I like it too.
If there's no discussion, I'd like to make a motion that we consider the recommendation from the policy committee to accept the revised language as stated by Jeff and in the
is there a second?
Agenda. Wait, I'm not done. To the audit committee charter to include monitoring audit deadlines, audit timelines, and reporting for mutual audits. Okay. I'm done.
Carol seconds. Any discussion? Dwight.
Just a question, are the 2023 audited financial statements for the mutuals done?
2023, Todd, you want to answer that?
Yeah. So all the 23 are completed. We actually have some mailings that are still being, in terms of actually the physical mailings to the mutual are in process, but in terms of completion of audits, we have one mutual that still needs to sign their letter of representation. But other than that, and I think some of the stuff we're discussing on this policy or this charter for the audit committee, there is a lot of steps to work these audits through the board approval process and steps. So I'm very favorable of this, but all the 23 are done. And just to speak to audits in general, because it is very critical to our not only being compliant, but also having timely, accurate information. We are, my team right now is fiercely working on the 2024 audits. Obviously the delays that happened in 22 and 23, everyone's aware of that here. We're driving to the 4:30 deadline as fast and as hard as we can to get those out. The good news is that has not to do anything with NetSuite. That's still all data in GenArc. All the testing that we do is coming from that system. And I hate to say it, but because the 23s, they did have a lot of adjustments and some changes and stuff, so there was a more in-depth, I would say, process. The good news is because 24 is right on the heels of the 23, they're actually going to be much more smooth and more completed on time. So, and you'll see communication with me on that.
Great, that's good to hear. And this amendment to the charter bears the RWC board bears the responsibility to make sure that these things are done, and having the audit committee informed on how these things is really important.
Okay, so we have a second, and any further discussion? Okay, roll call, please, Deborah.
Certainly. Hamaji?
Yes?
Hines?
Yes.
Topper?
Yes.
Hurt?
Yes.
Bentley?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Lair?
Yes.
And Walker?
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Okay, thank you. The next item is regarding the policy committee approving revised policy 602 regarding the Rossmore television channel. And if you could give us an overview, and this is a first reading.
Thank you. So the policy committee had recommended earlier this year that we continue to exclude religious and political programming from Rossmore TV. The board asked that it go back to the committee because they wanted to include an exception that would allow the politicians to still report at our meetings, participate in town halls. And so the policy committee is now recommending that we change the language to read, the channel does not accept programming on politics and religion. Political programming that includes elected officials or their staff who are participating in nonpartisan or non-election campaign meetings or events shall be permitted. I do want to note that it's very important that we not put anything related to elections or campaigns on Rossmore TV. Just a reminder, we are a community access channel, which means we don't pay $1 million in broadcasting fees, we get it for free. But the minute that we cross over into campaigns and elections, we are then bound by FCC rules. And unfortunately, that means opening it up to all candidates. If we do that, you will exceed our budget and our staffing.
Any questions for Ann? James?
As I read the new included sentence, political programming that includes elected officials or their staff who are participating in nonpartisan or non-election campaign meetings or events shall be permitted. Can we delete the first word political? Because, for example, we have a board meeting, we have a politician participating, an elected official participating in it, but this is not a political program. It's just a program that has a elected candidate, but it is permitted. I don't see the need for the word political in front of programming. It's just, you have a insurance town hall program that includes an elected official, blah, 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 blah. I just don't see why we need the word political in front of it. It's just programming.
It would work without the word political.
Yeah, basically any program that fits this situation would be permitted. Correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Since we're making a modification, does it need to go back to policy? No. Okay, we can incorporate that change.
Yes, if it's just a simple housekeeping change, such as this one deletion, you can definitely continue forward, but if you were to do something more drastic, it would need to go back to the policy.
Okay. So there's a first reading, we can leave it as is, and we'll see you again next month. Thank you. Okay, I'd like to call John down and talk about a plaque honor.
Hello. The motion for this is to consider the recommendation from the Policy Committee to approve the memorial plaque wording for Judy Appleman. The memorial plaque will be installed at the Dollar Clubhouse, and the wording of the plaque will read as follows: in honor of Judy Appleman, Pillar of B'nai Israel, and NCJW. Any questions?
Any questions for John? Okay, do we have a motion?
I'd like to move that we consider the recommendation from the Policy Committee to approve the memorial plaque wording for Judy Appleman.
I'll second that. Okay, Dwight seconds. Any further discussion? Okay, Deborah, roll call, please.
Certainly. Hamachi?
Yes?
Hines?
Yes.
Topper?
Absolutely, yes.
Yes. Yes.
Bentley?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Lair?
Yes.
And Walker?
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Okay, thanks, John. At this time, I'd like to take a 5-minute recess. We'll see you all back here at 10:35. Okay, if everybody could get back to their seats, we'll resume. We have a board. Okay, we don't have any unfinished business, so we're going to move on to item 11, new business.
Hold on one moment,
Ann
please.
Matola, if you could give us an overview of the
Hold on.
pool resurfacing.
I'm sorry, I have to interrupt, but Rossmore TV, can you unmute the Zoom?
I'm sorry, I can't hear that.
There we go. Okay, now we can go. Can you repeat what you said, Leanne? The individuals on Zoom didn't hear.
Just a minute. Okay. The whole thing? Okay,
Yes,
we have
just
no-
that you're
we
bringing
have
back
no
the meeting.
unfinished business. We'll move on to item 11, new business. And Ann Matola, if you could speak about the pool.
Hello. Okay, it's on now. So the item before you is a recommendation to consider approval of $221,924 for the Tice Pool replastering project. You may recall that last year, this was a capital project that was approved, funding was approved for it. As we were working with the vendor, they became unresponsive, and so we could not complete that project. We also didn't spend anything on that project, just so you know. So this is a project which actually goes into the safety classification, the pool plastering. There are areas of failure, and there's a certain point where the health department could actually close down the pools if it's in a certain state of repair. So we really need to get ahead of it. We're asking for approval of this funding now so we can negotiate the timeline with the vendor for September or October in that time range when it gets super hot in the natatorium, but the outdoor pools are still open. So I'm happy to answer any other questions about that. Actually, you know what? I should mention the bids. So just so you know, we reached out to 6 different pool companies, and we received responses from 2, but this was the only complete response. So out of the other 5 that were the failed bids, if you will, 3 were non-responsive. 1 of them no longer works in our operational area. And then there was another company that actually didn't do part of the scope that we're requiring, and that's obtaining the permits from the city, which I think, as people understand, are timely, and there's a cost with that. And the other part of the scope that they did not perform was pretty much balancing the pool. Like, once everything is refilled up, it takes a while to get the chemicals in balance again, and those are typical services of the pool replastering company. So Chambers is the company that we're recommending to proceed with. So the motion today is to approve the funding and to authorize the general manager to enter into a contract with Chambers.
Okay, any questions for Ann? Dwight?
And how much was budgeted in the capital budget for this project?
$250,000. And so just so you know, the 221 includes contingency. And the contingency is there because sometimes when the inspector comes from the city, they may see a little, they may want you to cut away some plastering that got on a fixture or something like that. You know, usually it's really nominal, but some of that may be returned back at the end of the project as well.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion? Ted?
I would like to make a motion to approve a capital budget expenditure of $221,924 for the Tice Pool replastering project or capital project, and authorize the general manager to execute an agreement with Chambers Pool, Inc. to be paid from the trust fund.
Cheryl seconds. Any further discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Certainly. Hamachi?
Yes?
Hines?
Yes.
Topper?
Yes.
Hurt?
Yes.
Bentley?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Blair?
Yes.
And Walker?
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Thank you, Ann. Oh, Ann, stay there. Okay, we'll do a deep dive of custodial department.
Super. So first of all, I want to thank the board for putting this deep dive on the agenda. Usually when I'll do the deep dives, because I'm, you know, well, I hit my 2-year mark, by the way, last week. But as I've done the different deep dives, I liked looking at the old ones that had been done just to kind of see, you know, what was and differences. And I don't believe we've done a deep dive on custodial. So I was really happy to do that because as you're going to see from the presentation, it's an incredibly efficient crew that covers a lot of territory really well. Oops. How do I do this? Oh, there we go. The remote buzzed, just so you know. And so, yeah. And so what I want to do is give an overview of the department, kind of the financing of the department. I want to introduce everyone to the team. We've had transitions and new faces. I'll talk about the actual custodial services that they perform, what's involved with room setups, and then I'll look forward in some of our initiatives over the next year to two. Okay. So currently the operating budget is approximately $2.1 million, and about half of that is in labor costs. And this also includes our overtime budget, which is at about $55,000. We have a total of 16 full-time employees. We have 1 custodial manager and 15 custodians. And I want to thank the board for approving that 15th position. So we just increased that for this operating year. And it's important to know, out of this big group, at any one time, you only have 4 to 5 people here covering the whole valley. And that's provided everybody's healthy. And just to look at the staffing and the changes that have happened or how it's remained constant, the last time there was an increase of staffing was in 2014, and it's when the event center opened, and that was a big facility, and so there was an increase from 13 to 14 custodians. In 2017, the fitness center opened, and it was twice the floor space and a different standard of service, and there was no change in the custodial staffing at that time. And so after like really looking and trying to figure out, you know, how can we try to catch up on some of the service or maintain the service that's expected, we went to the board, and again, we were given the 15th custodian. So we are now at 15 custodians. So here's the team. So we have 2 shifts. There's a day shift and a night shift. So our day shift is led by Mike Weathersby, and I'm going to go through their names because I want to tell you the tenure of the team, and it's really important as we go through transitions. So Mike will be coming up on 20 years with the company. Enzo has been here, I think, 32, maybe a little more. Martin Trevino has been here 7 years. Leticia Rodriguez, 14 years. Patricia has been here 3. And then Caleb and Gary, they're our newest hires. So they were hired as full-time employees within the last couple of months. They actually started with us as temps just about a year ago in April of last year. So temps are a bit more limited than what our team does, but they had a good working knowledge and understood the community when we hired them. And then we do have an offer pending with somebody that hopefully will be starting in the first week of May. For the night shift, Kevin Eccles leads that team, and his 20th year anniversary is this Saturday, so happy anniversary to Kevin. James has been here 5 years. Elias has been here 2. Aralia has been here 2 years. Charles has been here 14 years, and Tony Navarro has been here 6 years. And also part of the evening crew right now to fill that one vacancy that we're still recruiting for. We have a temp from the same company where we got Caleb and Gary. His name is Robert, and he's programming exceptionally well with the team. But you can see that there's a lot of tenure. And I will tell you, for Caleb and Gary, they're replacing people that had been here 14 years, 10 years. So I want you to keep that in mind as we go through the presentation a little bit. So those are the new folks there. Okay, so when you look at custodial services, they have 2 big chunks of work. Room setups and custodial services. And room setups is a little less than half of the time that the crews tend to spend on a daily basis. And we're going to talk about what's involved in each of those bodies of work. So custodial services, we want to keep everything clean through routine inspections, troubleshooting, finding solutions for minor repairs, things that are not the level that we would use our facilities team for. And they also maintain everything in a sanitary, attractive, safe, and orderly environment. So these operational areas include the 6 clubhouses, all the staff offices at Mod and Gateway. And I wanted to separate that 6% contract services out. That's actually part of service to the fitness center, but I wanted to show these kind of constitute like hours of time, if you will. So if you really look at the burden of staff work, about 20% of custodial effort is focused on the Tice Fitness Center and pool. And when you think about that and the type of the activities and all the different fixtures which our team has to go in there, and we have our employees during the day, and then a contract service 5 nights a week during deep cleaning in the locker rooms and cleaning all the mats and the pool mats. That is a very intensive facility. And then the percentage of time is distributed through the other facilities. No surprise, the event center in Hillside, with the amount of use that's there, that those are the next 2. So those are the facilities. And I think when you start digging deeper, it's really impressive when you think of 4 to 5 people per shift having to track down and take care of all these different fixtures that we have. So what are these things? So we have 62 restrooms, and within all those restrooms, 159 toilets and urinals, 110 sinks, 34 shower stalls, 41 cubicles, and 53 offices. I mean, it's a lot, and I will tell you, they do a really good job. They do kind of dust us down, maybe not every night, but on a regular night, and they're always running the vacuum. For all of us that eat our lunch at our desks, you never see the crumbs on the floor in the morning. And actually, I asked Ari, I said, how many trash cans are you emptying every day? So when you think about all this stuff that they touch and the detail work, it's a lot of work that they perform. You could say that they cover a lot of ground. I'm sorry, it's a pun. And so we wanted to look at flooring, because this is a big thing. We get calls all the time about there's a coffee stain in such and such a room, or there was a spill. It's almost 152,000 square feet of flooring, and it's all different types of surfaces too, right? So we have tile, wood laminate, carpeted. So a lot of what our crews will do is spot cleaning, and then when we are scheduling close of facilities, it's so we can do deeper cleaning. And so a lot of that will break into project work, and we'll talk about that when we talk about a day in the life of a custodian. So in addition to a lot of those typical custodial maintenance duties, the team also supports GRF in the events. So when we do the 4th of July or the Easter event or the different recreation activities that they will do, they're always there to give us support with setups. Sometimes they'll help if at the 4th of July, they've helped us at times running the soundboard. They also operate all of our movies at Peacock Hall. And they're also responsible for taking care of the picnic sites and all the patio tables. So it's like 80 tables between Dollar and Hillside, and another 50 tables at Dollar and Gateway patios. So there's a lot of stuff. So what does a day in the life of a custodian look like? Well, okay, they got to open and close all the facilities, but that's a lot of them, right? So a lot of doors, right? So they're either opening them or the night shift has to close them and make sure everything is secured. The first thing that any of the team do is they check the room setup schedule with the foreman, because that kind of drives the activities that can occur during the day. In their daily shift assignments, again, it's looking at the sketches and setups. If things were set up the night before, they should be checking to make sure they're accurate. And they want to make sure that those rooms are ready for the different users to come in and use them. So it's not only making sure the rooms are clean, but the pieces of equipment, if there wasn't time to wipe them down when they were set up, they're doing the last detail on them. They'll do things like the restroom stocking, and also they're always hitting the windows and glass. It's kind of an ongoing thing, like as they're going around in the mornings, and they're trying to, there are certain things which are heavily used, usually where the panic hardware is. If there's glass there, that's smudgy too. So they really do try to look at a lot of those pedestrian level areas to make sure that it's clean for everyone's use in the day. And so once they kind of get that stuff going in the first hours, then they're checking in with their foreman for assignments. And this is where they may say, well, okay, well, we had a lot of setup stuff to do in the morning. We didn't hit, we need to make sure we're going through the restrooms. And the foreman is responsible for making sure the team is focusing on high impact areas. But there's more. Our custodians, they're a remarkable group. I really love this team. They're kind of like a mobile info desk, if you will. And so a lot of times guests will see them and they understand that they're employees here. And I'm hesitating of saying employees of GRF, and I'll get the brand name out there soon enough, Dwight, but not today. But a lot of times people are asking them about the different services within Rossmore. And so they're really good about referring them to the different departments, referring them to the admin desk over at Gateway. But they're really wonderful in that regard. They also give people directions a lot. They're out there, they're telling people how to get to different facilities, how to find the event that they're in the campus for. If they see a resident carrying something from a parking lot, they'll always go and help a hand. They're doing a lot of moving around stuff. And this is more than just when we're setting up for the farmer's market and people are moving things to their tables. You'll see people going to the studios at Gateway quite a bit, or folks that are carrying things from the parking lot at Hillside into Diablo or Vista. And they're always being proactive in lending a hand for that. This little question mark is my signal for lost and found. Where did I leave that? So a lot of times, the morning after an event, the residents are reaching out to the custodians to help them retrace their steps and try to find lost and found items, even after they've checked to see if they're lost and found. And again, the customer service level of this team is pretty extraordinary. Of course, they get calls throughout their shifts to go tend to maybe missing details at room reservations. They take other types of emergency calls, like if there's a spill or something, especially on one of our hard surfaces, to make sure things can be cleaned up. And I wanted to call attention to what I'm calling these acts of kindness. So usually once a week I hear a story about one of our custodians helping a resident with something that has really nothing to do with the GRF program or function, but somebody comes in and they see our staff, who are maybe of a different generation, and they know we're tech savvy. They've helped set up iWatches, smartphones, do tutorials on those devices. One custodian was telling me about somebody that brought in their Bluetooth thermostat and just could not figure out, how do I work this? And he helped them set it up. I would say individually and collectively, they're pretty remarkable humans. And they really are there to create the best experience on every level with every contact. It's an exceptional crew. So let's talk about room setups for a little bit, because in addition to the traditional operation responsibilities, of course, people know there are room setup crew. And so usually there's about 66 setups per week. And that's just the ones with the rooms that we set up, not the no fee, no service types of reservations that they do check in on, because they need to make sure those, the surfaces of the different tables in there are clean and whatnot as they start the day. But we do 66 setups, and there's about 5 turnovers a day. So those are where you have typically our bigger venues like Diablo Event Center are the ones that have like the highest turnovers, and that's when you have to like flip and do a new setup in the room. We're counting. It's about 4,700 chairs a day and 536 tables a day. So it's a lot. It's a lot of detail work. I also wanted to talk a little bit about the custodial AV Tech function, because the title in their job classification is Custodian AV Tech. And so what's important to note is that this is something that they can train to. It becomes a little bit of a promotion within their classification. And most, but not all, custodians are the dual function. But what that means is that they have the knowledge to set up basic equipment used to enhance the different events. And those are things like microphones, if you need help with the projector system. They'll do the Zoom carts for the board committees. And they also will give you about like 15 minutes to check in to make sure all the connections are working, that you know how to operate it. Because this is when the club, the resident, will actually be operating the equipment in the room. And I wanted to make the distinction between the custodian AV Tech and the application support specialist, because this gets confused sometimes. They're the folks that can actually do standby time, which means they're going to stay there. They're going to stay there with your reservation and operate everything. And usually this is, sometimes people will want to stand by for something which is very simple and straightforward for basic equipment, but sometimes it's more complex, multimedia, sound and lighting. And also with that position, they also provide support for the GRF apps. And as we're looking at new software, there'll be some of the administrators for the software. And they also are responsible for training and the use of the tech equipment. And our team did a really great job creating the training and the manuals for the plug and play that's happening. So clubs can use certain technology for free. And also, this is a picture of Gerald. He is not a custodian. He's an application support specialist. But I just wanted to show that distinction. So looking forward, we have a couple of initiatives. So this is a trick photo here. So it goes under the classification of transitions and training. So we've had a lot of transitions. A key member of our custodial team that we lost due to promotion is Jeff Doctor. Now, Jeff was the person very visible at Hillside. And I don't know if he didn't spend all of his 10 years there, but I can tell you that he ran that place like a Swiss clock. He knew the cadence of the users, he knew the users, and there's a lot of things you can do intuitively once you're trained up or you're familiar and you know that world and the flow of the environment that you're in. So now we have people that have been here less than a year, and they didn't carry that responsibility. So it's gonna take a while for us to train. And what I will say is that the team is doing a really good job coaching, mentoring, really bringing into the fold Caleb and Gary. And they'll be as gracious with our third new hire that we're expecting in, because it takes a while to really understand how to finesse to be able to deliver the type of service. So we have more staff, but less tenure. It's going to take a little bit of a while, right? So we're going to slow down a little bit until we speed up again. But we're really happy to have Jeff in this position. He's been amazing. And I will say that transition also helped us because now we have 2 application support specialists. So last year, we thought we could reduce that to 1, and we found that it was cutting into custodial services because now the custodians couldn't go and do their routes. They were sitting on a reservation providing service, doing the support. So having Jeff now has alleviated that again. It's a better balance and better distribution of work. And so we almost have like kind of a new dynamic and a new team. And we're really focused on trying to figure out how to best deploy the staff. Avi Wave Avi. So Avi's our amazing manager for this team. He's been really good trying to look at, like, with the new team, the new talent, like, how do we rebalance this and what are we doing? He's looked at things with shifts or like the numbers of shifts. So we're really looking to see the best way to deploy the numbers that we have and the resources that we have to provide the best service. And then there's Avi. And so there's Avi with Megan Decker, one of our reservation coordinators. We put this picture in there because you can see that pile there, which is like 1 day of reservations. And so we have mountains of paper that we use, that we live and die by, to do our room setups. And with the new room reservation software that we're shopping for, we're really looking to automate how we communicate this information to the custodial services team. And there are things that happen in our process which, because we have this paper process that has to be distributed, we can't be as immediate when you have a room setup change within a week, right? If we have to put these together a week ahead, you may miss some of those last minute requests. So if we move to something which is more of an electronic format and also figure out the peripherals to push that out to the custodials, that should also improve the service level. So as we're looking at technology for that room reservation program, we're also taking into consideration how we can use that to improve the service level of the custodial team. So these last 3 slides, I just have like a bunch of shout outs and kudos that have come into this team. We receive these regularly. I mean, they have a lot of contact, but I don't know that I've worked in a place where the team was so consistently recognized. I mean, we'll receive positive responses for everyone. And what I think is really funny with this at the bottom, even when things don't go right, we still are always receiving great comments just about the service of our team members. So in that last one, I guess Martin couldn't get a video to work, but he was so helpful. And I mean, somebody really wanted to go out of their way and just thank us, like just the same. And so we do get a lot of these positive comments about this team that does so much for this community. And I really have to say that it's been a privilege to support them as they consistently provide exceptional service. And again, as we continue to grow our team and they kind of get a bit more seasoned, we're looking forward to seeking new ways to improve that service level even more. So that is my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Ann. Any questions for Ann? Dwight.
So, Ann, it's evident of the great customer service that comes from this department, and everybody sees it every day. What do you do, or what do we provide in terms of training? And is it in the hiring practice that we hire such customer service friendly people, or do we actually train them in those great attributes? How do you achieve that?
So this is a real shout out, I think, and a compliment and testament to Avi. Avi is very much, he's service, he plays team within the department, and I think he really wants to find the person that has the right temperament. I mean, they're consistently some of the most responsive, customer-focused people I've ever worked with. And it's very much how Avi leads, so that's a real big expectation. So that's part of it, and then if you have something that is that receptive, the training almost becomes easier. You know, they have the basic skills, and then what's happening is we're using some of our senior members to train in the specialized equipment, especially for the flooring. Different flooring takes different equipment and whatnot. So I think it starts with the character of the person that we've been able to identify, and then putting in intentional opportunities to mentor and train.
Thank you, Avi.
Any other questions for Ann? Just one quick question, like in the event that maybe the setup's not quite ready to go when it needs to be, who do residents contact? Like what is the number they call to get that going?
So we ask that they call Securitas and they'll dispatch to the foreman.
Okay, very good. All right, any other questions? All right, thanks. That was a great presentation.
Thank you.
And Todd, can you give us your deep dive on the accounting department?
very happy to take a moment to actually talk about the actual accounting and finance team outside of just NetSuite. We've been so focused on most of my reports and dialogue regarding the implementation, which is obviously going to be a part of this presentation, so because it's super critical to the future, right? And so I did get Rossmore Walnut Creek up there. Yeah. Elevating finance and accounting through people, service, and technology is kind of the theme for today. And I'm happy that everyone's here too, and those listening. You know, we have a lot of things that are taking place right now that are, you know, coming
hold
together.
Up just a second. Hold up just a second. We had a technical failure at the desk. Are we okay now?
You good, Maxine?
Okay.
All right. And so I think that I like to use I came up with this with elevating finance and accounting because we've had so many good people working so hard up there for a number of years, but really even since since COVID and the pandemic, you know, we've all struggled with the same, not being fully staffed, still using these very broken systems with the increasing amount of pressure and responsibilities. You know, finance and accounting is, you know, it's not just transactional. A lot of people think it's just transactional, and it's not, you know. And so I kind of want to share with you a little bit of my vision since I've been here. And obviously I also want to thank the board. A lot of the stuff that you're going to see today would not have been possible without obviously the foresight of moving to a modern ERP system, the decision to make that change. Even though there's moments right now I'm not really happy in the thick of it, getting it up and running. But it is so critical to the future of this community and how we service this community. And you know, so thanks for that. Obviously the board will change slightly, but I appreciate that. Not only on the NetSuite side, but also allowing me to come in and make some of the changes you're gonna see. So, real quick today for today's agenda is really, I think words really do matter. And I think I'm going to kind of introduce a word we're all familiar with, I hope, but I want to talk about stewardship a little bit in terms of the finance and accounting department. Obviously the human factor, kind of putting a face to the team. We are now 100% fully staffed for the first time. And I will say that Amanda Davis, our controller, has never had a full staff under her. And she has been keeping the engine running for over 7 years now, and there's been a lot on her to do that with the constant turnover. I think there has to be a big shift to how we look at customer service and really providing world-class customer service from a accounting and finance perspective. You guys have heard me talk about how I call it Rossmore 2.0, which is where we're going in the midst of this NetSuite technology change. And then I also think it's really critical to see how our department actually can and does align with the mission of the board and GRF as a whole, or Rossmore Walnut Creek as a whole. So the first part is stewardship. You know, moving away from just, like I said, some of the transactional details. I'm just going to read you real quick just Marion's definition. The careful and responsible management of something entrusted to one's care. And I think that is, I don't want to say it's lost. It's not necessarily lost, but I think the finance and accounting department are entrusted with the financial resources of this community, not just the Rossmore Walnut Creek and trust assets, but certainly all the mutuals that, you know, we're the property management company for, and that engage with our services to provide the fiduciary duties and accounting services. So as stewards of the organization's financial health, the finance and accounting team's mission is to provide trusted guidance, ensure financial integrity, cannot overstate that integrity word, and support informed decision-making. We serve as a strategic partner, aligning resources with mission-driven goals and long-term sustainability. And I don't think that's necessarily always been put in conjunction with the finance or accounting department, but I think the protecting organizational integrity, if we just break those down, safeguarding the financial assets through controls and compliance and transparency, enabling informed decisions, delivering timely, accurate insights, and leadership for the operational planning of those dollars. aligning resources with strategy, budgets, forecasts, financial policies that support the organization's priority, and then ultimately building trust through the accountability. We want to foster that confidence among stakeholders through that clear reporting and responsible management, right? So I just kind of want to start with our whole department's goal is to be stewards, right? And some of those being able to do that and do that effectively needed to have some alignment of duties, some more qualified people to come on board, and then obviously the investment in technology, because some of our inability to get to some of these stewardship levels were due to not having the tools and the software that would allow us to really thrive versus just survive. So I just want to leave that. I think anything I say today, I think that our financial stewardship and what we're trying to accomplish and what we're going to be accomplishing more and more of every day as we move forward is that. So the human factor obviously is the core of my team and how we go about providing that stewardship. You're going to see 3 separate slides. The first one is my direct reports. Obviously, we have Amanda, Dana Margelis, which Jeff mentioned came on board. Casey came on board. Brenda, who is an insurance coordinator, and then Julie, who probably every time I do a chart like this, feel like there should be 3 or 4 people under her because she is just a miracle worker. She sits in her office and manages all the purchasing for the entire organization pretty much single-handedly. So I can never give Julie enough credit for all she accomplishes. Under then Amanda, we have aligned ourselves with basically now 4 senior accountants. So we did have some change in some of the roles and descriptors. I moved away from a basically assistant controller position. And so we have 3 senior accountants, Leela, Joyce, and Joe, that are all dedicated 100% to the property management company side and are dealing with the mutuals. Kat, who has joined us just a little over a month ago, and happy to say accepted a full-time role with us as the senior accountant on GRF, or on the RWC side of the business. And that has obviously been very much a position we've been lacking since last October when Bridget left, and there's just a tremendous bandwidth issue there with obviously Amanda trying to not only just cover those duties, but also we're all trying to do 2 jobs with the implementation. On the other side of that, Diana Sire, payroll and benefits. Nina, who reports directly to Banna, she's our incredible free safety that pretty much problem solver and is fantastic. Annalisa Huggard, obviously property tax is a huge piece of what we do in terms of managing that for Mutual 1, 2, and 8. And then Tina on the bottom, if you guys remember, Bud Baxter was accounting manager. Tina was promoted from internal this year to actually be AP/AR supervisor. And so under Tina, we now have obviously a core group that have been here for a little bit. Callie's the most recent full-time addition, but Audrey, who is 100% on the RWC side. We have Sherry, Marquita, and Callie that are all once again on the mutual side. So you can kind of see how our work shifts. We have kind of the dedicated side and that also works on how we eventually will better do allocations between labor, between departments, and how we can get better in terms of budgeting staffing dollars. So I don't really want to get too wordy. This presentation will also be posted, and I want to make sure everyone takes the time to read through some of all the detail, right? There's a lot of, just a lot of text, but it's not because I just want to create a lot of text. It's hard to try to put into context sometimes all that my team does, because it's not just property management services, it's also internal stakeholders, it's internal, Rossmore Walnut Creek employees, right? We're kind of the hub and nexus for every dollar that comes through this organization, right, in this community. So, but I want to start with the next slide. I think it's super important that everyone starts at the top and understands my goals, right, because it kind of flows from there. So if you look at what I have established as my goals, financial stability, transparency, and growth. So I'll just kind of run through these buildings. One is the financial transparency. I think this is an area we have such huge upside. It has a huge reason why we're moving to NetSuite. Being able to see how the dollars are spent and feel like you have visibility into the dollars, both from the RWC side, and also all the mutuals, right? I think that it's super important. That transparency, I think, and it's not been lacking because of a bad thing. It's been lacking because of systems. It's been lacking because of just trying to get through the transactional side of it. And so the delivery of those financials and how you look at numbers, how they're more timely and just have more visibility into them, so there's complete transparency, even to the audit committee, and making sure that, I've talked about having a fiscal calendar, which we're still going to be continuing to roll out, so everyone knows exactly what my team is working on, how they're working on it. So April, we have audits, we have tax day we just got through, right? Obviously, we're trying to get the cadence caught up with the mutual financials, right? So we have a year calendar that really shouldn't have any surprises and tells what we're working on, right? And so that should be communicated very clearly. And I think that transparency also is super important. Budgeting and forecasting. The forecasting has been missing here. We haven't done it. The cash flow planning, the cash flow management piece is missing here. That forward-looking 3 to 5 year plan is something we need to do on an active basis, which will make our budgeting more better. Reserve fund management, I don't think it could be more critical for our mutual customers to know that they have the money 3 and 5 years now to keep their assets protected in good order, and that they have money to do it. Risk management, cost control, revenue enhancement. Some things in revenue enhancements are, examples of our corporate credit card program. We can move into a different program where we can start doing purchasing of supplies and eventually getting cash back up to $70,000 to $100,000 a year, just money we're leaving on the table. So a lot of opportunities. Technology integration, we're going to go into that. And then I think this last one obviously cannot be more critical, is the stakeholder communication. Open lines of communication with the boards, resident and service providers. And I also think that stakeholder communication from my department is also super important with the back corner of this room. My partnership with Jeroen on the mutual side, with Ann and everyone, in terms of how do we, because they're all, just like Ann just showed, they're all managing dollars too, and they're managing service levels, and that has to happen with good tools and good reporting. So, and building that trust in the community, it's been difficult. It was difficult during the pandemic with the insurance crisis. I would say there is fear out there in the community in terms of how their money is being spent and where their dollars are. And I think that is something that we need to truly embrace and be a part of that communication process. Going into now just some of the individual people, like I said, some of the stuff I really encourage everybody just to read on their own in terms of duty, because there is overlap. Amanda is just a tremendous resource, as everyone knows, for this organization. She's kept this organization moving forward, and has, I can't even tell you the hours that woman has put into doing what it needs to be done, right? She is a doer and will stay there until it's done. But she also needs to have the staff and the system tools so she can be a better controller, right? Looking at more of the oversight, reviewing more of the financials versus producing the financials, right? Also involved in that communication engagement. She is in the thick of it with how we integrate and run new processes and how we document all of our internal controls. Ben mentioned earlier about the internal control audit that we're trying to get for next year. That's super critical. Why do we push it off till next year? Because we want to have all these processes in NetSuite now documented. So there is really truly an operating guide on jobs and how things are, how the money is actually controlled. she needs to spend time on that policy development implementation. What are the best practices and standards out there for her team? Obviously the audit coordination and how that relates to the financial integrity, so that we all, from a board down to the resident, feel like there is good and sound financial management here. And then obviously this is an area that, always comes last, right? If you don't have the time to do a lot of things, leadership and team development, how do we continue to develop the team we have? How do we continue to provide leadership, training? We're moving into right now, obviously, with NetSuite, so there's a lot of educational training. There's a lot of, we're not doing it like we did in the past. How do we do it better? Sherry, on the business application side in IT, how do we create within NetSuite and framework better tools? We were just showing to the senior staff yesterday. Wouldn't it be nice if we just had on the MTFs, here, let's see who are the flippers and the residents and have a search criteria for that. Let's look at who the exemptions are on those sales and where those sales occur by mutual and property type, right? So much of that is, training, but also looking at how do we do things more efficiently and what is the information or gaps of information we don't have and haven't had historically. Moving on, this one is where I feel, and not just pushing everything on Daniel, even though I said FP&A up here, this isn't really just Daniel. This is a position that just didn't exist in this organization, which is the financial planning and analysis. And if you look out there, a lot of private industries and even other nonprofits, there is an FP&E group or department. And a couple things fall under that, right? One, yes, it is the role that creates the budget, creates the forecasts, right, that are very much integrally tied to, the challenge in finance is connecting the past with the future, and we're in the present right now, right? And it's that, and I think I've told everyone before that I had this thing called squid management. And so many accountant departments are what I call squids because their squids go like this, right? But they're going that direction. And they spend all their time looking back, creating results and creating the financials of the past. But then we don't ever do a job of then saying, what does that mean now if we look forward with those results? What does those results really mean? What is the takeaways from those financials? Be it a mutual board that's empowered with their fiduciary duty to run a business, to Rossmore Walnut Creek's board that also has to make those decisions. Right? What are the valuable takeaways from those financials? And we haven't put context to the financials, we just produced them. So the budgeting, forecasting, performance analysis, strategic financial modeling, that goes along with how do we do forecasts, how do we write 3 and 5 year business plans and look forward to the future. Cost benefit analysis. We've never had anyone able to come in and, let's just say, analyze a segment of our business as a product or as a process, or so the deep dives going forward, maybe it's a deep dive on the credit cards, or the deep dive on how we spend the utilities. There could be all kinds of things that we do deep dives on, but we had to have a structure and resources to be able to do that kind of work. And then like the last one, cross-functional collaboration. I'll tell you that the once again in that back corner and the collaboration we have with not just internal teams and stakeholders, how do we best serve each other as professionals, and how do we actually get to the key critical data to make decisions off of? And if you look on the project management side, that cannot be more important with the boards, right? And the boards are basically, in charge with running $1 million companies, and we're entrusted to help them. And so how do we become more offensive and give them tools to help to run in that business? The other piece of this, which kind of has been not really truly defined, is a whole treasury function, and that's the cash flow management piece, which we've talked about, and how we have never produced cash flow statements. And so some of that is nothing to do with staff or vision, has to do with systems, right? But what can be more critical than cash, right? The Finance Committee, we even touched on investment. How do we look at our current liquidity and access to capital, but more importantly, how do we take some of the capital and how do we invest that so we get to maximize a return on investments? not just here, but also with every mutual. And how do we structure those investments? And how do we bring a more professional level to how those investments are strategized? Are they laddered? What is the forward-looking bond market and prime rate market, and where the Feds might take cuts? And how do we actually look at our investment terms in terms of use of that with Ann on the capital side, right, so we can make money. Banking relationships, obviously that's all the signature cards, just everything to do with banking, which is huge. We'll get to that in a minute. Debt management and financing, and then financial risk management. We needed to bring to the board where we see risks, financial risks, right? And that includes some of the stuff we've talked about in terms of raising the transfer fee. How do we look at financing a pickleball court, right? All those projects come into how do we look at not just how we maybe finance some of those projects, how do we best utilize our cash. So this is a piece it falls across multiple people, but obviously Daniel and FP&A takes a lot of this on with my guidance, and I have a big part of this whole section as well. I want to get into some of the numbers, just so everyone's aware. I think most people probably maybe know this, but the senior accountants on the mutual side and also on the GRF side, but if you look at the mutual accountants, right, we're responsible for 132 separate accounts. So in the fund, our world of fund accounting, that's all the operating accounts, that's the brokerage accounts, that's the reserve accounts. So there's 132 bank accounts that they're closing, reconciling, managing payments from that. There's 13 separate GRF, MOD, and trust accounts, not including the sweep accounts. So just there's over 160, 62 accounts that we're using, 45 accounts we're using. So all those takes a lot of time. This is one of the areas where the move to NetSuite's been imperative, right? Because we are finalizing how that bank feed works so we can actually automate the reconciliation process. There's 40 sets of financials that we produce every month. If you look at including all the projects at Mutual 3 sets of finance for GRF, MOD, and Trust. Right now, all 3 of those senior accountants on the mutual side are actively providing the auditors with all the testing and information for the audits for 2024. So now that we actually have that group fully staffed, Amanda was still closing 6 or 7 of the mutuals herself and was responsible for them, right? So we needed to align our staffing to be able to put her into a review controller role and make sure that we actually had the senior accountants doing the actual, and they're going to be, and you'll see later on here that they're actually assigned to direct mutuals, and that is going to improve our customer service and resources for inquiry. Payroll and benefits, where Diane has worked, 250 employees. That includes all the benefit enrollments, includes all the necessary reporting for the health, welfare, pension, annuity, and dues. Obviously, the pension is going away now. Preparation of tracking all the matters related to our 401k retirement options. And then obviously she's a direct report for Eric and now Arnold on all the payroll matters and employee changes. So, a huge function there. We have Annalisa I mentioned on property tax. 3,368 of the manors are co-ops. So those are all pass-throughs with property tax. If you're all familiar with property tax, this is an area we're going to do some educational seminars on for the community going forward, so they understand how those pass-through works and how the special assessments come in after a sale, because I think there's still a lot of opportunity for education, but it's a huge part of what we do up there. As I mentioned, Nina, she supports all the accountants as needed, and she is working on several special projects for Amanda and I right now. On the actual AP/AR staff, I think AP and AR, it's more than just paying bills. There is so much to it. Q1 of this year, they processed 5,935 vendor bills. So you start multiplying that. we're actually at 30 to 40, 50,000 transactions a year that they're processing. As Dan mentioned earlier, great quarter on sales, but that's 159 sale transactions and closes we've processed, right? So escrow related, and that's carryover from last year as those closes come due. So creating those final demands, obviously maintaining all the coupon payments, tracking all that revenue, booking all that revenue. Very, very, I can't think highly enough of my staff and what they've been able to do, especially given they're doing all that with entire NetSuite implementation and a 100% second job on them right now. And I think the one thing what we're talking about here, especially as we transition into the customer service piece, is we have a clear vision on where we want to go with that stewardship. The tools we're putting in place now over the next, what we've just come through, but obviously over the next 6 months, are really going to allow us to start embracing even better customer service and being able to do some of the things we have not been able to do due to staffing limitations and system limitations, right? So the future, when I said the future of Rossmore is here, the future of the finance and accounting team being able to instill those values of stewardship and what that actually looks like from information delivery and insight into that information, well, it's going to be substantially different as we move forward into 2026 and later in this year. So some of these are just obviously how I see, and obviously my team. One is tailored financial communication, right? So depending who the customer is, we want to make sure that our information is tailored to that audience. It's tailored for the right level of detail. It's tailored to education, and also the ability to understand it at the level that is being requested. That follows with to get dedicated support channels. So we're continuing going to expand on this. I will show you the slide next on the start of it. But we want to make sure, like so in the past, moving forward, like I sent out the first round of mutual financials, but moving forward, those mutual financials and all the 5,500 compliance will come from the senior accountant, right? They're going to distribute their financials to their mutuals, right? So then the questions from the mutuals on those financials will come back to the senior accountant that produced them and is responsible for them. Proactive financial planning. This is obviously speaks to timeliness. You know, we all know we're behind right now because of everything we're going through. But we're going to be quickly to a point where that's a thing in the past. And we want to be able to make sure that we're proactive on all the tools and the statements we're providing. Customized financial solutions for the mutual, it's kind of a little bit ties to the first one in terms of customized financial solutions. Mutuals are different, right? They have different sizes, different structures, co-ops, condos, single dwelling homes. They have their different needs. They have different issues on their reserve funding. So obviously customized solutions, obviously they all want to avoid a special assessment, but you know, you look at 70 right now that just had to implement one because of the balcony thing. So we want to make sure that we're ahead of that curve and making sure that we are working for customized solutions versus putting it onto the mutual boards, right? And so 70 is a good example where Jeff and Tom and how they had to do the special assessment. We need to be better partnering with them in terms of how do they finance that special assessment, how do we work in concert versus just giving them information. And then the last one, something I'm very much bullish on is how do we actually now move forward in NetSuite 1, there'll be a lot of training on that as we roll out visibility, view visibility to the system, training on that, but also there's a lot of different levels of education out there in the mutual board. So how do we better partner with them to actually do training on how to read a balance sheet? I think we are so focused on income statements sometimes and just budget variance, we don't really look at the health of a business through a balance sheet. So I want to do some training on how to read a balance sheet, how to get a little more involved into how you actually determine the financial health of your mutual. We've never done forecasting of cash flows or a balance sheet. It's all just P&L or profit and loss income statement based. So how do we look at what the balance sheet health is? Some of those things have never been really touched on. So I think there's a lot of opportunities, like I said, from property tax to how to read the financial statements. There's a lot of opportunities for us to educate the community and the mutuals on what we do, how we do it, and why we do it. And the very last thing I want to end on is just, one more thing. One, this is the first slide in terms of assigning those senior accountants. Those are their mutuals that they are in Rossmore Walnut Creek. You see CAT at the top. Those are their emails. Those are the mutuals they're actually now functionally responsible for. So this is the first step in kind of creating that communication flow. We're going to move away from, at finance@rossmore.com that goes into a black hole. So the first step for the mutual boards will be to reach out to their senior accountant. And so we're going to start pushing this out. We'll talk at the President's Forum. We're also some other tools we're rolling out, which I did include in this presentation, like a SharePoint drive, so they have access to all past financial data. There's a lot of great things that are coming. And then with that, I just wanted to end with two things. One, we've talked so much about NetSuite, but I will say that transformative technology, we didn't have a choice. The decision by this board and the decision by this community to move forward in a modern ERP system, it really is the core in which you can build a very, very strong finance and accounting team off of, because it really gives us the tools to deliver. And it comes from the enhanced visibility, and we've talked a lot about this, but enhanced visibility, streamlined operations, scalable and flexibility, enhanced data security, which is critical in today's age with we hear about breaches in cybersecurity, compliance tracking, and then at the very end, improved member and stakeholder engagement. It allows all of us to answer questions quicker. I've been able to go out and demo, what NetSuite can do to a lot of the mutuals now, where they can actually drill down into see the invoice behind that charge or answer their own questions. So a lot of efficiency. So I wanted to focus a little more on the people today, but NetSuite itself, the foundation, not just on the finance and accounting team, because this goes through the whole community. It'll touch all the reservation systems. It's going to touch the websites. It's going to touch everything that Jeroen does on the work order service desk coming next. It's going to touch on how we do our forecasting, our budgeting. It is literally going to be out through the whole community. And it is what we can truly build Rossmore 2.0 off of. And we're getting really close. We're hoping, we're in phase 2 of getting the field service management, which is Jeroen's piece in there. All the member records will be in one place now, which is nothing to say but a daunting task, given all the different ways we have take information on who lives where, what, how, why. So upgrading to NetSuite, obviously, the ship sailed. We're in the midst of it, but it is, we couldn't really, I don't think, grow if we had just not made that change. GenArc from the 1990s was not able to ever give us truly forward-thinking, accurate financial reporting that is actionable. So, and then I'm going to end. I know we've been redoing our mission statement, but if you look at this mission statement, I think it's super important. The department or finance and accounting, getting back to that stewardship, how do we align with the mission statement of the organization? And, we need to have operational excellence in finance and accounting. The financial management of how we protect our assets, how we, use our capital funds to enhance the community, right? How are those resources allocated for the benefit of this community? What is it? And that's from the marketing side to everything else, right? We're all spending dollars to hopefully our vision, our mission. And my department and the whole finance accounting team should be completely in line with that, right? So support for nonprofit objectives. We actually heard a little bit of that earlier, but we are 100% wanting to focus on how do we make sure that every penny of money that we're spending is spent wisely, and every bit of excess money is put back into the community somehow through investment, right? And then, the collaborative financial planning is engaging with not just our mutual customers at, live here and that are ultimate customers, but also with the board, with Rossmore, Walnut Creek, with the community as a whole, the trust, the assets, the amenity. And I think that we will see over the next 12 months so much of stuff coming in alignment with what my team can deliver for this whole community. And there is so much opportunity to move us forward and alleviate fears and let people just enjoy their life here. And that's ultimately our goal, but to do it responsibly. And I'll just finish with that word stewardship again. I want to leave that with you because I truly, at my essence, believe that. And I want to make sure that you see that coming through everything we do. So, thanks.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Todd?
I don't want to prolong the presentation because I was starting to glaze over, Todd, but thank you. So, it's a difficult time for you to make this presentation because right now we're not delivering on things like monthly financial statements. What I saw here was a very aspirational presentation and a blueprint for where you want to go. My question is, what obstacles are there for you and your organization to get where you're aspiring to go? You're not there yet. How are you going to get there?
Just time. I mean, honestly, the answer is time. If we could go back and say, let's just set an expectation that no one will see a financial from until June, and we could have put all our resources, but really, Dwight, it's just time. Everything is in place. I mean, the production environment in NetSuite, it's not that we are just truly working through every new process, seeing opportunities to improve what we've done in the past. The people are there in place now, and it's just continuing the course. So as things come off the NetSuite burden and the staff is used to using it more and more training on it, it's just time. There is no roadblocks to where we're going other than then you can see why no one pulled this Band-Aid off before, because it's so disruptive to do a system implementation like this, especially it's not like we just upgraded QuickBooks, right? It's community-wide. And so I would say this is aspirational to your point, but it's also the core of what we believe as department. And more importantly, I was going to share a pickleball court in a cornfield because I think you build it, they will come. But maybe that would be too soon, but Field of Dreams, right? If you saw that movie. However, we did build it, and we do have the system in place, and we are moving forward. And there's just none amount of resources that we could apply with the small amount of industry institutional knowledge in GenArc. Jeff asked me lots of times, can we put more resources to it? Well, it's not just a resource because no one knows GenArc. So there's Amanda, right? And there's just a few people that have some of the history and the use of the system. And so we were truly limited on how that bandwidth works. And so we're going to just continue to see over the next 6 months these national goals really truly come in line. I mean, we do have the people now. We do have the senior accountants working on the audits now. We won't be a year late like they were in 22 and 23. You're going to have quality of financials, and you're going to have access to the digging down on those financials. We're going to be able to have a budgeting tool that we're going to have reserve funds imported into the system for this year.
I think you've answered my question. Thank you.
I'll keep going.
Time. No, I know.
I just want to say it's great to have all this information in one place, and especially the goals you outlined in the beginning. And I know we're still going through the drudgery of this conversion, but just keep those goals on the forefront, and I think we're going to do well. So thank you. Any other questions for Todd? Ted?
How do you feel with the new NetSuite system and where we're at with it? It's going to help us for our budgeting system in September coming up, because we're only 3 months away or 4 months away from when we got to start talking. How that
yeah, so we're actually pretty in good place for that. So we're right now within the phase 2. So the budgeting is actually being done in Workday Adaptive Planning, which is complementary to NetSuite, but it's the forecasting budgeting piece. We're doing some things in terms of hopefully bringing the reserve studies up sooner on the property management side. So we actually have all that data ahead of time versus waiting to the last minute. We have completely at this point mapped all the new NetSuite chart of accounts and all the into Workday. We are actually now moving next couple weeks into what that modeling looks like. The tool itself, if you remember, like one of the biggest questions I think came from last year's budgeting, where it'll be a little different, Ted, is the forecasting, right? Well, we just took last year's through June. We try to make a guess, right? This year we can quickly go down, and as we move forward, it'll be more and more accurate. But we can look at, honestly, you can go back and look at all the trial balances from last year. You can automate all that seasonality. It brings forward all modern for Amanda on the resource labor planning piece. It automatically populates all modern and all current, deduction, FICA, everything. So all that comes in when you just put a position in, it all populates. So there's a lot of AI and capability just that it's already going to populate that. So we're actually, that is not a worry of mine at all. I've used that tool extensively in my past, and it's phenomenal. It's also a tool that comes with unlimited view licenses, so every mutual during budget hearings can quickly look at it. And so really we're in good place for that. I can't wait for that part, because that's when we're finally going to have 3-year windows, looking out 3 years to start with.
Thank you. Any questions for Todd? All right, thank you very much.
You bet.
Okay. Okay, an announcement about the 61st annual meeting of members will be held on, the announcement is, this is the announcement. The 61st annual meeting of members will be held on Monday, May 12th at 9:30 right here in Peacock Hall at Gateway, and also available by Zoom. The organizational meeting of the board will be convened immediately following the annual meeting, also here in Gateway. There will not be a regular meeting of the mid-month GRF board held in May. And at the end of the month, our regular meeting of the board will be held on Thursday, May 29th, right here in Peacock Hall. We will now recess to executive session.